Please help me welcome Senator Wendy Davis.
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. It's wonderful not only to be with you, but it's wonderful to be with you at home. It was great to spend a night in my own bed last night. And welcome to Fort Worth for those of you who aren't from this wonderful city. There is truly no place that I would rather be than with the people who are protecting, cherishing, nurturing, and teaching our children. And to all of the members here today, I want you to know how fortunate, I'm sure you already do know how fortunate you are to have a tireless leader like Grace, and like Holly, and like Lonnie, who are at every single public education committee hearing in the Texas Senate. They are amazing. When I fought senseless cuts to public education back in 2011, TCTA was there. When I fought to reduce over-testing by redesigning the STAR test, TCTA was with us, helping to drive that train. And TCTA has invested in this campaign, helping us to build the largest grassroots army that Texas literally has ever seen. I'm still proud, so proud, that I won your Legislative Star Award my first year as a state senator. That award signifies to me that I stood with the stars that are scattered all across our state, and those stars, of course, are each of you. We stood together in 2011 when the insiders in Austin pushed a $5 billion cut to public education that left our schools with 25,000 fewer educators, 11,000 of whom were teachers. And we know what's happened in our elementary and other school classrooms as a consequence, and what the overcrowding has become. But we fought together in the last legislative session, and if you remember when that first budget came out in the Texas Senate, it only restored $1.5 billion of that $5.4, and I and only one of my colleagues voted against that budget for that very reason. And we worked with you through the remainder of that session, and with Holly and with Lonnie, and by the time we ended, we didn't get all the way back, but we got $3.4 billion of the way back to that $5.4 billion cut, and it was significant. And I am proud to say that we still stand together, and we still believe in fighting for all of the same things. Through your early mornings and your late night gradings, and through all of your hard work and patience, you show our kids that teachers help shape the bright future that Texas holds. I'm here today because I know the profound effect that a teacher can have in an individual's life. For me, it was my 8th grade geometry teacher, and he was my 9th grade algebra teacher. His name was Mr. Bishop, and his approach to teaching was very, very personal. For many, like me as a kid who didn't necessarily see the value of math in our everyday lives, he helped us to see not only the importance of math, but also the opportunities that lay beyond the triangle, the parallelogram, and pi, and he made math real in our everyday lives. And today, I remember Mr. Bishop as the teacher who opened my eyes to the world of public service. It was 1976, and he used his math lesson one day to help us understand the importance of the presidential race in the election year. I was in 8th grade. We took a vote on who we would support for president, and I remember voting for Jimmy Carter, and I remember that I was one of only 2 people in the whole class who did. And I remember wondering what was not right about me and why didn't I quite fit in. But then when President Carter won that year, I felt completely remedied in terms of the outcome of the election. I will never forget the day when we chose Mr. Bishop as our favorite teacher for our 9th grade graduation banquet. Our song, our theme song that year was Dust in the Wind, if you remember that. And I remember that the song played right before Mr. Bishop got up to speak and deliver his remarks, and he was sitting listening so thoughtfully to the words in the song, and when he rose to speak to us, truly with tears in his eyes and a very determined voice, he said to us all, "You are not dust in the wind." I will never forget him saying that to me, and it brings home the power that the words of our teachers can mean in each of our lives. I am proud to say that because of Mr. Bishop, I learned to love math. And by 11th grade in Richland High School, I had taken every single math class that they had to offer. And I can still do basic math. And I can do it well enough to know that today our schools are still underfunded. And it's in large part because of Mr. Bishop and because of you and because of thousands of teachers across Texas that I am fighting to expand opportunities for all hardworking Texans. A 21st century education, and therefore a successful 21st century economy, starts with all of you. Since October, I have traveled the state. I've heard from teachers and principals, parents and students, businessmen and women. And the central theme of our conversations is that we have to move beyond politics as usual to keep Texas in the lead. And no conversation about Texas' future can begin without a discussion about public education. I believe that nothing is more important to the Texas of tomorrow than assuring a bright future for each of our children. And I would assume that there is not a parent or teacher in Texas who doesn't believe that our state needs to do a better job of making sure our schools have the resources that they need. I am only standing here because I got a good education, even though my path was an unconventional one, led almost accidentally, literally, by a brochure that I started looking at for classes at Tarrant County College, taking paralegal courses, earning a seat in TCU's classroom, and becoming a Harvard Law School graduate. But my story of coming from a place of incredible struggle and poverty to a place where I stand before you today as a nominee for governor is not a story that very many children could tell in Texas today. And it's because our state doesn't provide to young people today the same investment in them, the same belief in them, the same regard for equal opportunity for every single child. And the fact of the matter is, it shouldn't be harder to tell that story today. It shouldn't be the exception that a child can make their way up and out of poverty through education. It should be the rule. We should be able to look every single child in this state dead in the eye and promise them that no matter who they are, where they're from, what they look like, or where they start, they have the potential to realize their dreams, and that we will be their partner every single step of the way. But unfortunately, in Texas today, we can't make that same promise right now because our state, not you, our state is failing them. The data shows us that by 2020, over 60% of Texas jobs will require some training beyond high school. Today, Texas has the highest number of adults without a high school diploma. And demographer Steve Murdoch projects that by 2040, that number will reach 30% of our adults if we don't act now. At the same time, Texas college tuition rates are soaring, and so is student debt, making college less accessible and leaving individual dreams like mine unrealized, and leaving companies across this state without the trained workforce that they need. But if we get this right, and I've got enough Texas tough in me to believe that we absolutely can, we will put $190 billion into our economy. We'll increase family incomes by $120 billion, and we will create over 1 million new jobs right here in Texas. And I have a plan. I have a plan to put us on that path. First, I believe that we need to provide quality, full-day, pre-K education for every single 4-year-old in this state. And I've been telling folks on the campaign trail, if Oklahoma can do it, by God, Texas can do it too, right? Second, I believe that we've got to get out of our teachers' way and let them teach more and test less. And I also believe that we need to judge students by their individual improvement, and that's how teachers ought to be assessed too, not by high-stakes testing. And third, I believe that we need to invest in our schools and in our teachers because that's an investment in our kids, and it's one that we should never be slashing. We also need to invest in our teacher salaries. Today in Texas, teachers are paid about $8,000 a year below the national average. And in an economy as strong as Texas, we can do better than that. We can do at least average. And as governor, I commit to you that not only will I work to put policies in place that create a pipeline for excellent teachers, we will esteem you as we once did, and we will pay you at least close to what you deserve. Fourth, we have to make college more accessible and affordable by doubling the number of dual credit college hours and doubling the number of early college high schools across this state. With a good start, students can become successful ones. They will become our trained workforce of tomorrow, filling the jobs of that 21st century economy. My plan is rooted in the belief that education is a promise that we make to our children. We tell them, study hard, work hard, and you can become anything that you dream. But public education is a promise that we make to each other. It's a promise that says, build your factory here and you'll find qualified people to work in it. It's a promise that says, raise your family here, and no matter where you come from, your kids can go as far as they dream. It's a promise that says, in this state, no one gets left behind and no one gets counted out. And that is why, in this state, a very young single mom living in a trailer and then in a small apartment, truly praying and wondering how she would turn her lights back on, has the privilege of standing before you as a candidate to become your next governor. This state gave me that chance. And we owe it to every single child, no matter where they come from, no matter their gender, no matter their race, no matter how rich or poor they are. Every child should be a part of the promise of Texas. And as your governor, I will never forget that that is our most important promise to keep. But for too long, insiders in Austin have ignored education. To them, our schools are just another budget football to kick around every few years. My opponent has chosen to defend the cuts to classrooms in 2011, insider deals that left us with shuttered schools, crowded classrooms, and teacher layoffs. 4 years later, Attorney General Greg Abbott's office is still in court. He is still fighting against more than 600 school districts across this state. And when it looks as though things aren't going his way, Now he tried to get the judge removed. And that's just wrong. But what's even worse is his education plan. Under his proposal, some children in some school districts will get some support for pre-K, but others won't. Under his proposal, some children in some school districts will get somewhat of a good start, but others won't. And at the core of his plan is more standardized testing, this time for 4-year-olds. That's right. At a time when parents and teachers and administrators across this state are crying out against the burdens of over-testing, Greg Abbott is calling for more. Under the guise of, quote, quality, he produced an education proposal that ties school funding to more tests. Now, standardized tests have been used on 4-year-olds before, and we can still learn from those results. This February, Susan Slater, a 25-year teaching veteran, declared that she'd had enough with over-testing. So she left her teaching job in Cambridge, Massachusetts. In her nationally publicized letter, Susan observed that as the burdens of standardized testing grew, her students suffered. She wrote, "I recognized many of these behaviors as children shouting out to the adults in their world, 'I can't do this. Look at me. Know me. Help me. See me.' Finally, Susan could no longer endure a classroom consumed by tests, and she concluded, 'I felt then and I feel now that my job left me.' That view of the classroom as a place where the joy of learning is replaced by teaching to the test is apparently how Greg Abbott sees our schools. But I want you to know that the people in this room are the people that inform my vision for Texas schools, because I know that you are the real experts, and I've been listening to you in my privileged 6 years in the Texas Senate, even though and even after I filibustered those cuts to public education in 2011, and even though as a consequence I was removed from the Public Education Committee in the Senate, I continued to go to every hearing at the dais with my nameplate and my notebook and ask my questions and listen to you, because I know that what you have to say is the best information that we can hear about how we shape the policies of public education in this state. So I've been listening to you. I've listened all the times that you have said, enough with the over-testing, enough with the insiders, and enough with lip service. And as your governor, I promise you, I will continue to carry your voices with me, because all Texas children deserve a quality education. If you work hard, study hard, never quit, we tell them, then you should determine how far you can go, not your circumstances, not your race or your gender, and certainly not Greg Abbott's outdated thoughts on education that pick and choose who can succeed, that pick and choose which children are worth fighting for. All children are worth fighting for. All children deserve a fighting chance. And that is really what this election is all about. Texas needs to throw open the doors of opportunity for our children. We need to affirm the promise that's built our state, innovated our workforce, and driven our economy. The one that says that no one gets left behind or counted out. That with hard work, grit, and perseverance, and that's who we are as Texans, that with that grit, where you start will not determine how far you go, and that every voice in this state matters. It's a promise that's at the foundation of our schools. It's in our Constitution. It's actually the only constitutional dictate to the legislature to provide a free, effective, efficient system of public education, and that's what we're fighting Greg Abbott in court about right now. And I will tell you this, as your governor, if we aren't providing that, I won't sign that budget bill. I am going to make this my #1 priority. I am going to make you my #1 priority. I am going to make the children of this state my #1 priority, and I am going to fight for you every single day. Thank you. Thank you so much. God bless you all. God bless Texas. Thank you. Thank you.